Realization. I've made my own little thing that I think people might be interested in, or not. I don't know. Okay, so I have a new theory, right? So I think a majority of mental infirmities or illnesses actually aren't like disorders at all. I mean, they're disorderly, but I don't think they're like it means you're broken. I think a lot of mental illnesses are just a part of like nature, because I think when a person gets horny or like very sexual or lustful, they start to act really weird, and they start to act like even mentally ill sometimes when it comes to that kind of thing. So I feel like when people are like acting imbalanced, I think it's just like a part of some hormonal or naturalistic impulse that's fracturing a person's psyche. So you're kind of just at the whim of biology and nature, and you can't really will yourself out of those kinds of things. The only thing you can do, in my opinion, is to use your imagination to think yourself out of it, because in my opinion things kind of go in this cycle, this kind of elemental cycle, right? Like fire represents ego and the will, and then it's superseded by earth, which is more practical, naturalistic, more in tune with nature. But then earth gets overcome by air, which is your intellect, your logic, and your abstract mind, which then gets beaten by emotion and empathy and madness and irrationality, which then goes back to fire, which is about the will and ego and transmuting those emotions to the external world and overcoming adversity. So whenever you're like in a very fiery, passionate, egotistical mood, and you feel yourself being dragged down by your biology, like you're nuts, like you're starting to get horny again, or like you can't control yourself, or your mind is starting to like lose its homeostasis. In those times when you know you're going to be drawn into the biological hysteria, it's time to get back into your mind very fast. They say to get out of your mind so you can be more, in the world and be more in the moment, and you should be. However, there is a point where it does start to become restricting to you as a person. And if you find that your fire is being extinguished by these very cold and sterile realities, or even your own internal biology is sort of crushing your goals, or not crushing your goals, but getting you off track from them. It's at those points, because your id is what is overcoming your frontal cortex to make logical decisions. So when that happens, you really have to start thinking outside the box quickly, because if you don't, you're gonna be succumbing to appetites and impulses that are going to be bad for your health and mental well-being. I think about like women who have like major depressive disorders, or like BPD, or some kind of hysteria, or some kind of crazy mental thing. And I don't think it's a disorder at all. I do think it's just a part of nature. Just like when your brain starts interfacing with reality and the outside external world, your hormones are going to start acting up, and it's going to respond to it. Your brain is going to start responding to inequities and other things and stressors, which will then make you lose sight of what you originally had in your mind to reach for, like an ideal. Again, the only way to really get around nature is to get in your mind. The only real way to but overcome, like I said, and get through it is to start thinking as much as possible. It's to step out of your body and get back into your mind, so that way you can use your imagination to figure out ways to circumnavigate your instincts, because sometimes your instincts don't have your best interests in mind. It only has its more primitive cravings going for it. So, but that's my 2 cents on that. Women are obviously more naturalistic than men. Everyone knows this. They're more practical, pragmatic, more proprioceptive because of their bodies, by virtue of their bodies always causing them grief and pain. If your genitals constantly cause you pain, you're going to be more in tune with what your body is communicating to you, rather than what is going on up here, like in your mind all the time. So, but men, we have the luxury and privilege of having a ball bag that doesn't give us any kind of pain. So we're able to kind of lounge around in our little palace of our minds all day to kind of create little imaginations and fantasies. And that can be a very, very good thing. I think the concept of justice comes from the mind. There is no justice in nature at all. Man kind of invented that idea, and we use that idea to order ourselves. A lot of our order is synthetic. It's man-made. So you have to remember that. If you want to create order from your chaotic monkey mind, you have to get back into your more evolved one and start really start hitting the thoughts, It like I said, it could be argued that a lot of fetishisms, and they really don't have, there's a very blurred line between what is natural and what is insane. When you look at monkeys or chimpanzees or bonobos going at each other and being very horrendous, eating each other, having incestuous orgies, we don't say that's insane. We say that's nature, right? We see dolphins raping like little tiny fishes, and we're just like, oh, that's just nature. When man does it, though, it's evil. Because nature doesn't have the concept of good and evil in it. Only man has the concept of good and evil. So, and that comes from your mind. So again, if you want to overcome nature, you have to really get inside your head. The only times in which it is not okay to be always inside your head is when it's time to act. And men have to use their other side to themselves, which is their more egotistical, willful, passionate side, their emotional side. So men should be emotional in terms of their fire, in terms of what they want, in terms of their will. But your will can't overcome your body sometimes. And when it can't overcome that, you have to regroup inside your head and start thinking things through. It's like a little game, you know. It's like a little rock, paper, scissors game it has going on, where fire gets taken over by earth, air takes over earth, water takes over air, and then fire takes over water. So it goes in this little cycle, just like the little astrological cycle with the elements and the masculine, feminine forms. So if you're a dude and you're trying to really get your shit together and get on track, you have to oscillate between those two modalities. You have to shift back and forth between being a passionate, willful man, and then when nature starts calling, revert back and become a more abstract man. Go back and forth between the airy abstractions of the mind and the fiery passion of the soul. And then once you get those two things working in tandem together, you're going to be unstoppable. There's nothing that can possibly stop you. We got 30 minutes before I have to do this little dumb class I don't even care about. Men are sort of, I've said this before, but they're like the middle point between what's real and what's like mythological. Like they can perform miracles with enough willpower and thought put into it, you know. A lot of noble men tend to have a feeling of shame and even guilt after the act of sex. Because one, I think there's two reasons for that. One is because, again, you're tied to your genitals, you're tied to your body, your mortal clay. So you're not able to overcome that power, you know. that sexual power that's ingrained in us, you know. So that's one thing, the fact that you can't overcome that through your will and your strength. Instead, the second part of reason why people feel guilt and shame about it is because a lot of it's you have to really reflect on what you've done, you know. Because I think even the miracle of life is a very grotesque display, you know. The act of sex itself is a very violent act, and like I've said before, when you analyze it, you're basically shoving a piece of yourself inside of somebody else, and then you're injecting your DNA inside of them, which will just stay inside of this woman, inside of her womb, for 9 months, until this new living creature growing inside of something else, like a parasite, feeding off its nutrients until it's finally ready to rip out of her. And it's very bloody, it's very grotesque, like I said, it's very gross, you know. The entire act comes from like a very gruesome and hideous process. So again, nature is very grotesque, but the things that exist in a man's mind are very purified, you know. There's no everything is ideal. There's no kind of complexities or anything like that. It's all very simple, straight to the point, straightforward, you know. Whereas in the physical world of forms and line segments and objects with 3D space that have magnitude and properties that can be analyzed and understood through mathematics and science and experiments, that's all real, but at the same time, it's also an illusion, because once you get down to the smallest speck below that, everything becomes probabilistic, which is very random and strange. So all the things that give rise to forms, or anything that you see, comes from a very abstract place, comes from the ether, where things are popping in and out of existence. And that's the entire field of quantum mechanics. So once you get to the lowest point, you can't understand it, and you can't intuitively understand anything at that level. But then when you scale it back up to where we are, this little illusory world we live in, this reality we live in, with a lot of riddles running throughout, you think that you know things because you can understand them, but what you're understanding is like a puppet show, you know. And underneath all of the forms is this energy that's in all these living things. It's the breath of the divine acting through all the conscious organisms that walk this earth. But yeah. Multiple things can be true at the same time. And based on your perspective on it, your little world can be all that the truth that you need. Your little tiny perspective might be the only reality that you really require to function. There's a lot of power in belief. Things that are adjacent to you will try to influence you. I find that the world tends to like to bring people down or flatten them out in a way, or flatten out their potential, because we tend to go for things that are average more than stuff that are on the fringes, like below or above. We tend to go straight for the middle, where the mass of people are, because this nature prefers it when you're all grouped together in the little middle section. And where was I going with that? I have a lack of sleep. I haven't been sleeping that well the past few days because of work. Oh yeah, now I remember. Well, like I was saying, a lot of potential's flattened out, right? When people inject the seed of insecurity or some kind of idea within you, the idea is like a baby. It's like a new organism that starts to manifest within you, and then you'll start to become a conduit of a cause or some other idea that you weren't even aware of, and you're not even consciously, you're not cognizant of it as you kind of make your way through life, kind of preaching these things and acting out these things. Because people who have a very negative and pessimistic view on things, your philosophy on life says more about you as a person than it does about the world. Okay? The world is what you make of it. What you say is a reflection of you. Okay? It's not a reflection of the world itself. It's a reflection of you. It's a reflection of your mind and your ideas. If you're a very positive person with a can-do attitude, and if you say that you can do whatever you want and that you can overcome anything, chances are you can, because you believe it. And there's nothing more powerful than belief, in my opinion. So, but if people put restrictions on themselves and put limitations on themselves, their body will act accordingly to that notion. So wherever you're pointed at, wherever your heart's pointed at, your soul will acquiesce to it. So, if you believe in astrology or palmistry or whatever, you will find patterns in it, and you will start to believe in it, and it'll become real. Or if you believe in God and you believe in higher power, that will also start to manifest. We live in a very stochastic, chaotic world underneath all the organization that we see at this surface. But beneath it all is an abstract imagination. And once you tap into that, you can make a lot of things real. Within these limits, of course. Within the limits of forces and other such things. And I know that these philosophical musings and ramblings are not attractive. I know they're not entertaining. I know they don't make you any money, and they just kind of bores people listening to it. Even makes you unlikable as a person. But the reason why I do it so much is because it's honest and it's what I actually think about. So why wouldn't I express what's happening within onto the outside? So if people have a problem with it, I don't really care. There's only one man, like I said, and I've always said, there's only one man I have to satisfy in this world, and that's me. It's the man in the mirror. There's only one. And that's the way it's always been. That's the way it's always going to be. That's the way it ought to be. Couple of last notes there that I want to express before I leave. When I was talking about man's mind earlier and how good it is and how it can come up with a lot of good ideas that can help them detach themselves from these bodily grievings. It can lead you astray too. Your mind is not perfect, obviously. It can't, the perfect, idealistic, platonic mind can't reconcile with the cold brutalness of what is real, of the physical world and the physical objects that have a tendency towards something. Just as air has a tendency to expand in every room it's in to the volume of it, our biology, our DNA, our hormones, our organs, our brains, our senses, they all create this very beautiful illusion. They all come together to blanket us and keep us in like a cage in a way. But we can't escape it. So because of that, we have to find a way to make what's in our minds real within those confines. So, in any way possible. Sometimes, though, men will try too hard to impress the idea of what they want to believe in onto the real world, and that is especially true when it comes to like other people, nature, or other ideas such as the family unit. I find that a lot of men will idealize their relationships. They'll idealize their own pain and struggles. They'll idealize everything. They'll idealize history, all sorts of things that really shouldn't be idealized, right? Because if you try to idealize people, you're going to be very disappointed, right? You create this image of someone in your head, and then when you meet them and over time, it ends up not being so good. It ends up being disappointing to you. Or like relationships and families. People think that once you get a woman and you settle down, you have kids together, that everything's going to be happily ever after. But it's been shown time and time again that a lot of families tend to be kind of unhappy sometimes because of the fights, the competing egoisms within the family unit. People have different interests. People, when the kids grow up, they come to their own with their own identities that can be at odds with what the parents believe in or what they're doing. And when that happens, it becomes very chaotic and it adds complexity to your life. And a lot of men, we like simplicity. We like when things are straightforward, and we tend to be at our most simple and most at ease and harmonious when we're by ourselves, even if it's lonely. Even if that's lonely, that is the kind of drawback to it. We're very powerful when we're by ourselves, but then we don't really have any kind of person to go off of, right? We only have ourselves. But then when we get a family, the only thing guys are thinking about when it comes to women and families are like the little happy moments. They're only thinking about cuddling up to a girl in the bedroom, going on picnics, walking around outdoors, hiking, kissing, having sex, watching stuff together, doing little small things and being happy. But it's not real. We all know that it's a little bit more complicated than that. And then when you get into a relationship, again, you can't account for all of the things that may or may not happen in it. And people change over time, and they become very weird over time. And you can't account for those things either. So life happens randomly, and when it does, you have to kind of figure it out. Guys aren't thinking about the potential fights with women. They aren't thinking about the stuff they'll say to them that they won't like. They are not thinking about the potential for cheating. They're not thinking about the potential when they do have kids, if they're going to become drug addicts or gang members, or even just bad people in general. Maybe they're going to be horrible and they'll badmouth you and try to fight you. They'll bring people over that you don't want into your home. Stuff like that. You can raise them as good as you want, but they'll end up being who they are because that's who they are, and you have no control over it to a certain point. So while you're thinking about all the hunky-dory happy times with the strollers and kissing and hugging, the reality is, again, people have egoisms and they have weird mental imbalances that can occur sometimes that you can't account for. So because of that, you have to take the good with the bad. And some people can't make those sacrifices to gain those things because it's too great. It's too great of a price to pay for their own mental well-being and for their own homeostasis and balance and peace. Some men choose to be at peace, even if it's more solitary. And some men also value their freedom. And of course, if you get with a family and you start a family, you are restricted now. That is your life. You are no longer just a single man moving about the world trying to prove himself anymore. Now you're a family man. Now you're a father. And that's the biggest thing that's the biggest label on you now, is that you're a father. And you're really not much else. Maybe you maybe have a title at your career job, but that's it. Suddenly things become more narrower, and your world becomes more narrower because of that. And your entire life now revolves around your family instead of your ideals that you had in your head. So it's sort of like a ball and chain. So it is what it is. Those are the pros and cons. Those are the drawbacks. Those are the caveats to those things. Like I said originally with the original thought, men idealize stuff that shouldn't be idealized. Like when men idealize their pain, it shouldn't be idolized. The struggle is good because it makes you stronger, but there comes a point where you're just coping. and you're just coping with these bad things, and you have to figure out a way to get around some unfortunate circumstances, or be a stoic and continue through it to the end. So that's the flaw with men in their minds, but it can be their greatest strength as well. It can be their greatest weakness, and their greatest strength is their abstract minds that are very idealistic. And their passion as well. But of course, with the will and passion, it has to work in tandem with the abstract mind. Otherwise, it'll fall to nature, it'll fall to other stuff. Men have to externalize their emotions, or it becomes internalized, and that can be very destructive. It will manifest through like drug usage and addictions. And you don't want that. Anyways, I got 6 minutes before I have to get to class, so it's all online. I got a Zoom meeting. It was nice talking to you. I'll see you after it's done. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. See ya.